So, thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, you'll be happy to know you're all fully clothed. Books are my life. By any measure you care to name, I'm 90% books. Brain size, personality, spending money, time, 90% books, all of them. So since books are my life, I thought I would introduce myself to you by sharing the books of my life. One of the first books I remember is Sally Squirrel's Wish. Sally Squirrel wanted a bonnet. Her friends scorned that goal because, after all, what does a squirrel need with a bonnet? But she pursued it anyway and finally found a leaf. And I still remember the picture of Sally trying on the leaf bonnet and looking at her reflection in the mirror in the pond. From Sally Squirrel, I learned to follow my heart and think outside of the box. Now, interestingly, when I found Sally last week and reread it, that's not what the story's about at all. But those are the messages that I took away from Sally. One of the first chapter books I read was my brother's Before Me, and I think I read it to dust because it's gone, despite my pack rat tendencies. So I copied a picture from Amazon. This is the right picture. It's Spin and Marty, which is about two boys, one a boy, city boy from the east, and one a boy from the west, who met at a ranch summer camp in the west. Spin and Marty introduced me to my most enduring love, cowboys. In junior high, I moved on to adult westerns, and I read almost everything Zane Grey wrote, and I read The Virginian by Owen Wister. The Virginian was my constant companion for a few years, because if I wasn't reading him, I was rereading him or daydreaming about him. He was the original literary cowboy hero, I mean, seriously. And he was a quiet, morally strong person with the courage to do the right thing, even at great personal cost to himself. Now, in all of these westerns, the hero fell in love, and that led me to what is currently my favorite genre, which is romances. But even now, when I'm reading romances, I'm still drawn to the cowboy and rancher heroes. From Western romances, I moved on to straight romances. I first tried reading Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice, when I was 10 or 12 years old, and I finally summited this peak when I was, I think, in early high school. The language and writing style were kind of challenging for a 20th century kid, but it was well worth the effort. And though I didn't realize it at the time, it was a natural progression for me, because what is Mr. Darcy post-transformation if not a cowboy? And what are cowboys if not gentlemen? Like everyone does during their teens, I rebelled. In my case, that took the form of embracing my Russian heritage. Now, this was the height of the Cold War, and I lived in a politically conservative county. So, that was satisfyingly rebellious. And it had the added benefit of making me a martyr, because I really wanted to learn Russian, but my school only taught German, a language I had no interest in. So I turned to books. The Cowboy and the Cossack. It was a great read. It combined my pet rebellion with cowboys. It would have been a perfect read if only it had had a romance subplot, but I don't think there was a girl in it. I did not reread that one to verify that. All that early reading of adult fiction gave me a killer vocabulary, which helped me nail the Sats, which got me into Dartmouth, where I finally got to study Russian, and even got to go to the Soviet Union for 2 months on a foreign study, which was amazingly cool. In attending an East Coast liberal arts college, I became, to my parents' way of thinking, alarmingly liberal. But my love for cowboys kept my heart in the West. And even to this day, I still, though I consider myself an environmentalist, I still support the right of ranchers to raise cattle and make their living that way, and because the West would be a lesser place without the ranch and cowboy cultures. While at Dartmouth, I met Stephen, and though we share a love of cowboys and doing things the cowboy way, that actually does not extend to honeymoons. The whole outward bound thing he told you about a few weeks ago was entirely his idea. I could barely ski, and I was dropping F-bombs, boom, 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 like jet propulsion devices to get myself up that mountain. Just had to get that one in. Though I'd found the love of my life, I continued reading romances. Finally, 15 years ago, Steve convinced me that I should try some do-it-yourself romance novels. And so I did a few myself. I wrote 4 or 5. My favorite one was A Perfect Six. Guess what? Cowboys, ranches. The hero saves the heroine's ranch at great personal cost to himself. What a guy. I love the experience of writing A Perfect Six, and I'm done now. So these are the books of my life. The books that tell you that books are my life. Thank you very much.